That ugly cat, is his name Hunter?
Baby, let me ask you something. Is you down to roll?
Oh, here's Lindholm, shot, scores! They going to the goal. Lindholm to the middle of the shot block, and shot, scores! Matthew Tkachuk, what a goal!
Back to Matthews, in front. Oh, what a stop by Markstrom. How does that not go? And play continues.
Monahan back across, Mangiapane scores on the backhand. What a play as he worked it up to his foot. In with Lucic, plays it over. Lucic scores! Comes Monahan, from in, scores! Sean Monahan in overtime. Like Shillington, right in, scores! Oliver Shillington. The other way, here comes Coleman with a punch to break, scores! At the moment, here's Dubé, and Dubé cuts in front, the backhand score!
Backlund shoots, scores!
Kept onside by Hannafin, who races into the play. He's in deep. Up front, scores! Noah Hannafin.
Oh my goodness! And somehow that stayed out too. They're on their feet in Calgary.
Left corner for Aginla. Aginla to left circle. Aginla shot. Joseph save. Rebound. He scores! Yeah, baby! Yeah, baby!
Hello. So today we're with special guest Ryan Leslie. You may know him if you've watched a few Flames games. How are you?
Yeah. I'm great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah,
it's been a wild year.
How have things been with you? How has this season been treating you?
Well, I mean, probably like a lot of folks, just kind of waiting for that sense of normalcy to kick in. I mean, from a seasonal standpoint, I mean, obviously real life is a little different, but as far as the hockey context is concerned, yeah, I mean, the starts, the stops, the on the road for, most of the season. And now, with All-Star break behind us, or just about behind us officially, I guess it is now, that now we wait. And, this is just not, it's another season where it just won't be normal. And now we're going to look at whatever it is, 40 games in 80 days or approximately there. And it's going to be a lot of games, a lot of TV, and a lot of, waiting to see which version of the Flames we'll get. It's been a good year for anybody who's watched this team in this season. They'll take it. And now they want to see, okay, where's the consistency lie? What are we looking at in the second half? And if and when there's a playoff berth. So still a lot of unanswered questions, but a year of up and down and still trying to figure it all out, like the team and like the schedule.
Definitely. And I wanted to ask you, Ryan, being around the team so often, do you get that sense of feeling that there is a different feeling in the room, that they're going to find that consistency and be able to put these games together?
Well, that's a good question, but the reality is that we're not around the team as much as we used to be because of COVID. And so, I am from time to time, and, you jump on a Zoom call, which, is not a great format for getting to know the pulse of what's going on. And, I've been fortunate enough this year to travel with the team a little bit. I mean, normally it's every road trip, but this year, just that 2-week trip in November, I guess it was, out east. But other than that, we're kind of at a studio in Toronto. And so it's really hard to get a gauge. In chatting with them, of course, they believe it and they have to. They're professionals. And as far as, the belief inside that locker room and the, relationships that I do have there, I can tell you that they do like this group. They do like where they're headed. It's hard under Daryl, but they know they've needed that. They, they're still prone to, 3 and 4 game losing skids, but they've managed to dig out and all of a sudden make us forget about that. And so it's a real Houdini at times, and we're trying to figure out what it is that this team can do. And I think there's a belief for sure in that room. There's no panic, there's no doubt, there's no quit, there's no wonder, if we can do it. They know they can play with anybody. They know they can beat anybody on any given night. Will it continue to be, that consistent, given how many games and fatigue and injury and anything else you want to throw at him going forward. I mean, those are the great unknowns and why you have to play the game, I guess. But no, certainly there's no lack of belief or I guess just camaraderie and togetherness inside that room.
No, awesome. Yeah.
With the success that we've had this year, we've had a lot of unbelievable storylines so far. Guys like Markstrom, Shillington, like the top line. It's unbelievable what Gadroz and Tkachuk have been able to do with Lindholm down the middle. As we stand right now, they're statistically the second best duo in the league behind McDavid and Draisaitl. And that's absolutely nuts. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize just how, I guess, capable that top line could be. We all wanted it. We all longed for it. We wanted to see that deployment. We just never realized how unreal they would be together over a certain stint of time. And I think it's something that is just unreal to witness, and especially Oliver Shillington's breakout. How are you feeling about like storylines like Shillington and Markstrom?
Yeah, there's been a lot. Shillington's been a real pleasant surprise. I kind of found it interesting when Daryl said, we see the game in a similar way. I wouldn't have predicted that in a million years, that he would say something like that. But there's an empowerment with Shillington that Daryl has bestowed upon him. And there's never been a lack of confidence with Oliver. He's a very confident young man. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, there's that good confidence, a real belief in yourself. He's not cocky. He's not brash. He just knows that, he has a belief in his own skill set and in himself, and through his fitness, through his lifestyle, through his play on the ice. I wasn't sure we were going to get there here. I was with him when he was drafted down in Florida, and he and his father were there, and his dad was just here for a long period of time. There's never been a belief in what he can do. I think there was some maturation that had to happen to his game, and we're starting to see it. But you don't sleep on the Chris Tanev factor, and that's a really big thing. It allows Oliver to play his game, and Tanev can, for the most part, kind of cover up any mistakes that come with a young player playing that riverboat type game. So I really like Oliver as a person. I really like him as a player. I'm so glad it's paying off here, because there's been some patience, there's been some development, and we haven't always seen that at times here. You can look at guys like Ryan Lomberg or others, or Sam Bennett, or I guess there was some patience with Sam Bennett, but some other players who came through here, and you develop them, and then you watch them go flourish elsewhere. And that's the hard pill to swallow for me. And I would imagine so. I know so with management, but with Oliver, a guy who had to clear waivers take that back. Just for a guy who looked like the potential of him not being here was there. I mean, it's working out offensively, and there's the good and the bad, and you take them all together at the same time. So
I think playing with a guy like Tanev for him was the perfect fit. He's such a settling role, like mentor to him, and he's just thrived under that. And I'm so happy to see Oliver getting minutes in the NHL and playing in the top four, because he's always such a great guy. He always has a smile on his face when he's out there. He just looks like he's really enjoying it all the time. So
so I'm with you. I just think it remains to be seen if he turns into a complete offensive defenseman, like we've seen some other offensive guys kind of modify their game. But Markstrom's been a great story. There's been some dips, but there's also been a lot of leadership. There's been a lot of nights where he has saved this team.
Definitely.
And there's been nights they've played really well in front of him. So I think he's and you listen to Johnny over the All-Star break talking about just how good Markstrom is and what he means to that group. It's not hard to see. That top line has been lights out. And you mentioned how they might be a top two duo or trio. I mean, then you factor in defensively. You look at some of those numbers and defensive zone starts and not allowing 5-on-5 goals. And I mean, that I didn't see any of that coming either. So I would right now say if they're If they're not one, they're certainly two, because when you round it all into one thing, they're just the way they're playing, a complete package. Those three look downright dangerous. And you're right. People wanted to see it. They wanted to see it. It's happened. It's worked. And they love playing with one another. There's no worry about ice time. There's no worry about getting the puck. They all credit Lindholm, I think, first and foremost. And then, but those two Americans love playing together.
Oh yeah.
Discrediting this season, given that you're not around the team as often, but judging by, I guess, your experience with a lot of the guys in the room, do you have a few guys that you absolutely adore talking to?
Well, the one, when you need something to be broken down, good, bad, historic, funny, whatever it is, the one guy that I love going to for perspective and insight is Lucic. He is just, he's as good as it gets. And, he's a champion. He's a competitor. He's tough as nails. And what a season he's having. Great family, just always gives you great perspective. So he'd be the guy that if I need on a big night and he played a part in it, or if I needed something when it was going sideways and everybody's ticked off, or if I needed to go back and ask him about somebody he played with or somebody even before him, he's money.
I wanted to ask you about the emergence of the Zadorov and Goodbranson pairing, especially over the past couple weeks. They have been super solid back there. I know at the start of the year, they both took a lot of heat from our fan base. And a lot of people weren't happy with the signings that were brought in, but I think they've stepped into their own super, super well back there. And Zadorov's even looked amazing offensively.
Yeah. I think of late, he's been a bit of a surprise because I didn't see it going that way either. And he's big and he showed some real glimpses of offensive prowess early on, but the mistakes, you're like, okay. But I can tell you this, especially in a conversation I had with Lucic about him and how much Zadorov really wants to be there for the team, wants to be reliable, wants more responsibility, versus maybe somebody who's, I'm not going to suggest anybody at this level is a passenger, but everybody's got a different heartbeat, and this guy's one that really wants to be better. And we'll see if he can because if anybody can tap into him, if anybody kind of figures him out and can get the most out of him, then look out, right? Because he's got a little mean streak. He's got some personality. He's got some jam. He can show you a little something offensively. If you can figure out how to get him to be making good decisions defensively, night in, night out, and positionally. And I work with a couple of really great defensemen, former defensemen in this league, and Jason York and Corey Sarich, and they echo that too. If anybody can kind of get him to figure it out decision-wise and consistency-wise, then look out, because there's something there. It hasn't all come together at the same time throughout his career, but there has been some moments. In Colorado, that type of thing. Chicago wasn't really there long enough, but there's some pieces there and it's intriguing. But Goodbranson, boy, and maybe that's kind of like the Tanev thing, right? Where Goodbranson's helping Zadorov figure some things out. And
definitely,
Goodbranson to me is just in a really good place personally. He's got a wife, he's got a newborn baby, he's got a team that he likes playing with, and you got a guy who I talked to in Ottawa, and he just said, I'm just in a different place, injuries aside, he just had game 600. I'm really enjoying the game and where I am. And I think sometimes in players' careers, they go through that where it's good, or then maybe it goes bad, or maybe you got some injuries, or the teams aren't going the way you want them to. And then all of a sudden you find a new lease on life. And he's still not the oldest guy in the world either. I think he's just 30, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that. I'm terrible with ages, but he's pretty young. Still, he's got a lot of miles on him, a lot of injuries, but he's in a really good place. He's healthy, playing really well, and in a system where I think he's really regarded and respected, tough as nails. It's not even fair. Good looking guy, tough, talented. It's just a crime, Why can't we all be like that?
Right? No kidding.
Just
going back to that Zadorov and getting the most out of him. I really think Daryl is definitely the type of coach that is maybe one of the only people that can get the most out of him. And Daryl has done such an amazing job with this team. Even like last year when he was brought in, we didn't see the changes right away. And a lot of the fan base was kind of like, okay, well, it isn't the coaching, but the team had an off season. Daryl got to bring in some guys that he knows and he likes. And we've seen the changes over this off season, and they're playing such beautiful hockey night in and night out.
Well, and, credit to Daryl, who typically doesn't go towards young guys, but on the point that you bring up about, guys coming in that he's familiar with, and you credit Brad Treliving for working with Daryl to figure out some intangibles and guys, because the coach has got to, the coach can't bring guys in, but the coach can play guys or not play guys, right? And
right.
The coach can, and that's the biggest thing. So those GMs and those coaches got to work together and say, okay, well, what do you need? What do you like? And what are you going to play? And what's going to work for you? So credit to both of them for identifying a couple of things. And to finish the point about a young guy, I mean, to bring in a guy like Rosichka, that's not typical Daryl, like especially at the expense of Brad Richardson. So Definitely. Who is, by all accounts, I talked to guys a couple of years ago in Phoenix, and I said, in Arizona, I said, whose room is that? And they're like, it's Brad Richardson. Like, he's a good guy and everybody loves him everywhere he's gone. So it's a credit to Daryl, a credit to Rosichka, and a guy like Richardson for being a good soldier. But just the idea of being open-minded to putting not only the best product, what's going to give you the best chance, development, all that stuff. So Rosichka must be doing something that Daryl likes, because if there were even a hint of it, he wouldn't see as much ice time. To use the Doroff point, it's so true. I mean, Daryl likes size, Daryl likes bite, and he's going to give him opportunity. I mean, it hasn't gone exactly smooth sailing for our good friend Juuso Välimäki, who is waiting to come back up. And we've seen enough errors where people on the outside, and I'm sure you guys plugged into the fan base, have heard that the conversation about, okay, is it now time to turn to Juuso Välimäki? So Daryl stuck with it. And I think right now, anyhow, we're seeing it pay off.
Definitely.
Right now, we're second in the division in points percentage. And I mean, standings are wonky because we've obviously had the COVID pause. We didn't play as many games. If we stay situated, let's say second in the division based off of points percentage, do you see a big move happening at the trade deadline or edge tinkering?
Well, I think the reality, I mean, I know Brad Treliving would love to add a little more scoring, a top six guy. I know he'd also love to add a defenseman, a good defenseman. Now, how many teams do you know would love to do that? Probably almost all, right? That are in this type of conversation. It's really hard to make deals. And the reality is what are you going to give up to get it? Everybody wants to talk about it's so easy to bring in and do that. But what are you willing to part with to get it? Are you, I don't want to play fantasy GM here, but does somebody want all your garbage and in exchange for something really good? No. So, it's going to get, these decisions are not only hard right now and have been hard, especially with COVID and border and health and where's your team and are you playing and all these different factors that really go into it all. And the truth is, it still remains hard to make a deal. I off the top of my head, I don't know how many deals have you guys seen made this year? I can't think of any, and I'm sure there are. I'm just not thinking of hockey trades right now.
They were very minor if they're.
Yeah. So as you get closer to your deadline, to your question, I think it wouldn't surprise me if they, as you say, hang around in that same position, but it will remain to be seen, because I don't think it serves anybody any good right now to forecast something when you don't know. For the most part, where the season's going to go. There's so many variables with the schedule, as weird as it is. I honestly, guys, I just think you play this thing out, you get closer to the deadline, and then you look at, not to suggest you don't have a plan. I know they have a plan, but at some point you've got to look at yourselves and go, okay, we're now in a position to go all in, but look how fast you can fall out of it right now. Right. And I'm not talking about games played, but percentage and losing skids and all these things. So there's no point just now, and maybe we're getting closer now that we're in the second half, about, it would be good to get a guy for a little bit of time, but what are you going to give up? So when do you push all the chips in? It's got to happen. But what are you willing to get rid of? Are you willing to get rid of a younger player? You look at a Mangiapane or a Dubé, or you can't get rid of one of your guys on your top line who everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
You just got to roll the dice and say, okay, we're in. But, Brad's dealt draft picks in the past, and sometimes that's been good and sometimes it hasn't. He's traded down to get more draft picks. That's been great. Connor Zary got him, picked up an extra 2 picks. So, and the reality is, Jacob Pelche and Zary and those guys, they're not ready yet. They're just not ready. They're first rounders. And we're so used to Bennett's and Kachucks and Monahan step right in, and John, and it's just not there yet. So what is your currency? What is the position of your team? And what are you willing to give up? I think you just got to kind of play some hockey and play those games that you have in hand, because those, as you guys know, those games in hand are only as good as if you win them. So you got to get up to speed. You got to let there's teams, you got to still play. So you're still trying to figure yourself out now.
For sure. I had another question for you. Even since the game in Columbus, pretty much since Michael Backlund snapped his 18-game goalless drought, that second line has looked really good, and that's something that the Flames have needed. And there's been a lot of talk this season about depth scoring and why we need to acquire a top 6 forward and whatnot. But then even touching base on Blake Coleman in Arizona, that was his best game of the year. He was flying out there. He threw that huge hit on Travis
And
Boyd.
don't forget about Florida, right? 12 shots, a goal. He was in the teeth of it, getting nasty there. It was good. And
the contract that he was signed to, a lot of fans have said that he needs to bring that offensive point production in order to fill his boots on that contract. And we've really seen that second line start to engage. And all 3 of them are really pulling their own weight now. And I just wanted to ask you to think if you think they can continue that for the rest of the season here.
I kind of think what we know about them is what they are. Michael Backlund is a good 2-way forward. Michael Backlund, if you ask any of his teammates, they'll tell you that they got a lot of respect for the way he plays. He's very underrated, and he does the little things. And when the scoring's not there, you look at that, and, even Darryl was critical of it and needed more. You do need more.
Yeah.
Blake Coleman, Darryl said the other day, he's okay with, he's on pace for career highs and his averages. I think now he's on pace for just over 20, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I don't know as though you're paying Blake Coleman to score 30 goals. It may happen. Who knows? But I think you're paying Blake Coleman for leadership, stability, championship caliber, being a leader on this team to show guys the right way. You'll never have to worry about him and the coach. You'll never have to worry about him, his teammates, or his line mates. There's a quiet leadership. There's a work hard, dog on a bone mentality. And I think you still will see career numbers out of him. So I think we just all got to kind of remember what they are, who they are. I know we're all thinking about what we pay them. I get that. But I think you have to just appreciate that it's not always, puck in the back of the net. And I know everybody wants that, but these guys bring other things that other guys don't always bring, who can light the lamp. So it's a good mix.
I guess with the upcoming summer that we've got, and I mean, this question would kind of seem redundant, kind of have to wait for the trade deadline to see, what is done and what, I guess, the mathematical outlook of the cap is, heading into the summer. But I guess everyone's talking about how Gadroz UFA, Kachuk's an RFA with arbitration, Mangiapane's an RFA with arbitration, Shillington'S an RFA with arbitration. Do you see all 4 of those guys back in Calgary next season?
No.
Yeah, that's the harsh reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if we're angling towards the Johnny Gadroz situation, and I'll just give you my 2 cents, I'm not sure he's back. However, I can tell you one thing: the man loves playing here, and the man understands the grass isn't greener on the other side. And it may still happen, guys. It very well could happen. And I'm kind of probably like a lot of people kind of hopeful it does. His career started here. His career has flourished here. He's a 6-time All-Star as a result of playing here. Don't necessarily jump on Philly, hometown, lots of room, blank checks, all that.
Right.
Maybe at some point in his career, but I would wonder about going forward, what his situation looks like. I don't know as though he'll be back. But I know that he very well could be, because he loves it here. I think it's just going to be about, I always think about like the NBA, and guys get together and talk and a couple of things. First of all, I don't think, I agree with Charles Barkley years ago, said, when LeBron was going down to Florida, you don't go to them, they come to you. When you're truly the greats, they should come to you. And if I were inside that Flames locker room, I'm sure they've had many, many conversations. And I would just say, guys, we're building something here. Like, look at this line. We love playing together. We got Lindy, who's lights out. He's got a reasonable contract. Okay, well, what if we did this? And just do some internal math and think about, all right, well, if we do this, there's a little more pie to go. I think that way, but I'm not a Kachuk or a Gadroz or a Monge or a Shillington or anything like that. So I'm not sure all four, as you pointed out, will be back, but I can tell you that if the question's about Johnny, he loves playing here, would love to stay here. The family, I know for a fact, spoke with his mother last week. They love it. They've wrapped their heads around it. Calgary, and the distance between, Philly or Jersey and here is not an issue for them. They love the family that they're a part of, and their whole family does too.
That's awesome to hear. I wanted to ask you about Sean Monahan. 2-3 years ago, he was a first-line center and one of the best in the NHL. And a lot of it does come down to injuries and surgeries, and it's just so hard to continue that pace of play. Do you see him ever stepping back to anywhere near what he was, or is he going to be a bottom 6 kind of guy for the rest of his time here?
That's a good question. I think he bounces back. He's a 30-goal scorer. 30-goal scorers don't grow on trees.
Right.
But injuries, as you point out, have been a factor. And told me not that long ago, feels great. And it was around that time that his game started to elevate a little bit. Plus, when you play with Johnny Gadroz, things are a little bit easier than playing with other guys. So Johnny had this great sense of being able to find him. Sean was a great trigger man, a great finish. Other areas, and you know what? Daryl praises him too for his work ethic and just kind of digging in. And so I do think he gets back to, some of those offensive heights that we've seen in the past. Does he reach 30? I don't know. I don't know who he's going to play with, so I can't project that. But I know playing with Johnny Gadroz certainly helps anybody. Look, he's helped Matthew bounce back, as we all knew Matthew needed to. Maybe we need another Johnny Gadroz to play with Sean, but I just think he's just a good finishing touch. I wish there was some other parts to his game that you could rely on, but if he, he's not the fastest guy, he's not the most physical, he's a finish guy. So he's got to find somebody who can. It's interesting, right? He's a centerman, and he needs a playmaker with him. But I think he will get back to those offensive numbers again. I'm just not sure when or who will do it with.
For sure. No, yeah, that's awesome.
Alrighty. Thank you, Ryan.
Well, thanks for having me, boys. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on. We
absolutely.
Yeah, good luck with the show. And if you're ever jammed down the road for guests and you need somebody, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Good.
Okay, guys.
It was an absolute pleasure, Ryan. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks for having me.
So yeah, that was Ryan Leslie from Sportsnet.
Absolute pleasure having him on. It was great to hear everything from inside and around the Calgary Flames, get a real personal insight towards the Calgary Flames. That was super cool.
That was absolutely nuts. And the fact that he said that he would love to be back, we should just start up a series. This was a really cool sit down today. I really enjoyed that. If you like our content, there's more of this to come. So please consider subscribing to the YouTube and maybe following on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, everybody.